Podcasting from Red Hook, Brooklyn, New York. This is the Brooklyn Baritone Podcast. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Whenever you're choosing to listen to this, I appreciate the support and you checking me out of my content. I'm going to see if I can make this short and sweet today. You know what they say about problems. If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. Well, I was looking up some information about many different things, of course, and I came across an article, at least a couple of articles regarding emotional abuse, among other things in mental abuse. And I started reading some websites and I came across some actual comparisons to many modern day situations that I'd like to bring light to. I'm going to go down what this website has. The source of my website here is www.verywellmind.com. And here's what they break down for emotional abuse. Emotionally abusive people display unrealistic expectations, such as being dissatisfied no matter how hard you try or how much you give. They expect you to share their opinions. You are not permitted to have a different opinion. Emotionally abusive people invalidate you by undermining, dismissing, or distorting your perceptions or your reality. Refusing to accept your feelings by trying to define how you should feel. They also refuse to acknowledge or accept your own opinions as being valid. Going further, believe me, there's a point to all this. Stay with me. Emotionally abusive people use emotional blackmail in the form of humiliating you in public or private, exaggerating your flaws or pointing them out in order to deflect attention or to avoid taking responsibility for their poor choices or mistakes. Sounds rough. So some more. Emotionally abusive people act superior and entitled. They treat you like you're inferior. They blame you for their mistakes and shortcomings, doubting everything you say and attempting to prove you wrong, making jokes at your expense, telling you that your opinions, ideas, values, and thoughts are stupid, illogical, and don't make sense. Talking down to you or being condescending, using sarcasm when interacting with you, acting like they are always right and they know what is best and what is smarter. All right, those are just the rundowns of some of the experiences and scenarios of dealing with emotionally abusive people, and it's a terrible thing to deal with that, because a lot of us now are dealing with a lot of broken issues, issues that make us and cause us to be broken and stay broken because we don't know how to deal with it. Now, going further in the whole idea of why I'm talking about this, see, fortunately, there are a lot of resources that support individuals that experience these things. There are hotlines, there are support groups, there may be some funding for that. There are a lot of people who are very aware and they sympathize and even empathize with people who have gone through some sort of abuse. The unfortunate reality is that when these very same scenarios affect a certain set of peoples, many people still refuse to acknowledge that these things even happen. Basically, what I'm talking about is the systemic effects of racism and bias targeting. We see that's the whole segue and whole point of why I ran down these things that I found online about people who were emotionally abused. You see, for centuries, people of color have and still experience this form of abuse through centuries of indoctrinated global education of false sciences, aggressive marketing campaigns, unethical lawmaking, and systemic protocols of targeting. So these things are still felt, but at the same time, unfortunately, we still can't get over that hump. There are still people who refuse to acknowledge what's going on and what has happened. Hence why I said at the beginning of this podcast, you know what they say, If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And the problem is that many people choose to jump on that bandwagon because they are either people who are benefiting from targeting and keeping people down, oppressive behavior, or they feel that they aren't going to be affected by it. Basically, it's rather it happened to those guys over there than it happens to me and my people. So the issue is that you have to realize it's a problem. In order to fix a problem, which there very much is a problem, you have to identify that there's a problem. There are many people, not just people of color, that are well aware that this problem is happening. There are people of color who experience these things every day, and there are people who are not of color that understand what happens, and they're very sensitive to these issues. And it's not like you want a pity party or you want to share your moments of crying in your Kool-Aid with someone. That's not the issue. The issue is realizing that there's a problem that's going on and it needs to be identified first and foremost to move forward. So there's many comments out there, you could say in social media or different online formats, and there are people who interact with you every day. You see it in the news, you see it in real life, that people just say, get over it. There are people that would say, well, I don't own any slaves. Or you find people like, well, you weren't a slave. That's besides the point, because this is a result. And this is the light end of it that I'm talking about as well. This is the light end of racism and slavery and everything involved in that and those despicable acts towards people of color. It's been a global thing, as I said, global indoctrination through education. There are many people who have been devastated from these acts. So the problem is that people don't see it as a problem. You have to see it's a problem first, and then you come up with a proper course of action. And then in order to fix a problem, identify, come up with a proper course of action, and then actually execute that course of action. So it could be in whatever form that you could possibly think of. Reparations, proper education, but at the same time, there's so many people that have so much hate ingrained in them. So many people who wish to stay ignorant. There are people who are ignorant because of what they're taught in their families. There are people who are ignorant because of what they are taught in real world, because you have to understand that many statistics, a lot of the media tends to skew many things about people of color or whoever they choose to. So when people who don't get outside of their comfort zone of thinking and living, whatever they're spoon-fed is what they digest. Proper education is always going to be the key, because I'm very certain that there are people who probably didn't like someone. Doesn't have to be a person of color. Could have been anybody, a certain ethnic group or a certain class group, until they actually interacted with those people. And that's one thing that I would just slide in my experience with the military. That broke down a lot of barriers. Not saying that there were not racist or terrible people in there, but just the fact that you are forced now because you have a common theme just to get through the day and get through the mission. From people from all over the country and all over the world, we very quickly get past our differences. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should go join the military to educate themselves and be more sympathetic and empathetic towards your fellow man and brother, but all you have to do is come out your comfort zone. Now, some people, they choose to stay like that. They're going to be like that from the cradle to the grave. But I'm just going to be one of those extra voices that hopefully make you think about this whole thing about racism. It could have been like a 2-year segment that I could have done on this, on the atrocities and everything, but I'm not going to get into that. I just found it very funny that when I read the article about emotionally abused people, and I said, wow, that is the light end of what happened to people of color, not just in America, but all over the world. Think about that. But anyways, I wanted to make this kind of short and sweet. You could always check out my content and my podcasts on my website, which is www.brooklynbaritone.com. You could always catch me on my YouTube channel, which is on Brooklyn Baritone. You can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook. I'm also on the Google Play Store and the Apple iTunes Play Store. Thank you for checking me out. I pray you guys stay safe, be blessed to walk good. We will hear from you next week. And I may check out Steve's Key Lime Pies. Anyways, I'm out.